One question I really, really wanted to ask you, I was really dying to ask you as soon as you accepted the invitation. I was like, I really, really want to ask this question. And it was, I seen that photo of you and Chris Williamson. And for our viewers who don't know who Chris Williamson is, or Chris Willx is his like other name, I think he's famous for his Modern Wisdom podcast. And he has lots of clips which surface of him saying a certain quote. And just he he speaks a lot of wisdom and deep conversations. And I wanted to ask you, how did that like come about? Like, what was the like interaction like, and what did you just take from it? Because this is the question I really, really wanted to ask. Because as soon as I seen that photo, I was like, I have to ask Brad. As soon as he comes on, I have to ask him because Chris Williamson is one of the best podcasters because he's diversifying because he's doing most greens right behind him now. So I wanted to ask your response to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Chris has been one of my favorite podcasters for the past few years, and within the last year specifically, like he's absolutely blown up. He's over 1 million subscribers at this point, and it's absolutely amazing because he not only, obviously, since he's a really big platform now, gets to have on the super big guests, the Jordan Petersons, the David Goggins, but he also, even though he's big, still makes it a point to bring on those smaller guests that nobody knows exists, but they have so much value to share in their specific field and stuff. So that's a beautiful thing that he's still brings. And so I think he's a great example of a podcaster that is not only spreading knowledge and positivity, but is also the most authentic that he can be. I mean, he's so vulnerable about, something that he's dealing with or something that he's going through. And it's not often that you see a big creator be that vulnerable or that open about something. But anyway, meeting him was an absolutely incredible experience. So I think it was the day of, so he went on tour with James Smith. And if anyone doesn't know James Smith, he does a lot of fitness content and some comedy stuff. And he's really funny and very insightful too. And so they went on tour together, and so they were in New York City. And the day of, I did an in-person podcast with a guest at a studio, and I called my friend right after. I'm like, "You want to go to the city tonight? You want to go see them?" And he was. I had to convince him. He's like, "I don't really want to go to the city, blah blah blah." But I got him to say yes because I was like, I got to go see. I've been a fan of Chris's podcast for a long time. I love what he talks about. I got to go see what he has to say in person at this event and everything. And at the time, I didn't even know who James Smith was. I didn't know who he was until I got there. And then now after meeting him too and talking to them, now I watch James's content too. Great guys. Anyway, me, my best friend Jack, who I mentioned before, who I had the podcast with a while ago when I was in high school, and my brother, we went that night. My brother had to meet us later in the city because I think he was coaching or something before. But anyway, he met us there, and we watched Chris present, and then we watched James present. They also had a Q&A at the end of the end of their talks, and the people in the audience would have a chance to ask a question. And I fortunately I was one of the people that was picked to ask a question. And it was funny because like 2 days later, I looked at, or maybe I was just scrolling on Instagram, and I saw Chris and James sitting on the stage, and I clicked on the video, and I heard my voice in it, and I'm like, oh, I made a clip of me asking my question. So that was like super awesome to see. But I think I asked what something that happened in their life that really taught them something. I don't remember the exact question, but anyway, it was really cool. And so anyway, at the end, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go drink. We're gonna go hang out at this this bar across the street from the venue. If anyone wants to like come and hang out with us, you guys are more than welcome to." So, we leave the venue and we go there, and me and my brother and my friend get there. It's 21 plus. We're not 21, and we don't go clubbing and stuff, so we don't got no fake IDs or anything, right? So we talk to the bouncer in the front. He's like, "Yeah, you got to be 21." We're like, "Oh crap! Like how we're gonna miss this? We're not gonna be able to talk to them." But anyway, it ended up working out better because obviously, since none of us drink or anything, it wouldn't have been worth us to go in there and hang out because they would have been mobbed. I'm sure once Chris and James walked in there, they probably were mobbed with a bunch of people talking to them. But anyway, we stood outside the venue and we saw Chris and James start walking on the sidewalk, towards us. And there were a few other people who were standing out there, so they got to talk to them as well. And then I waited till they were done, and I went up to Chris, and we introduced ourselves. I'm like, Brad, nice to meet you. And I told him that I had my own podcast, and we recently broke 1,000 subscribers. And he looked at me, and he had the biggest smile on his face. He shook my hand, and he gave me a hug, and he was like, "Congrats, man!" And in that moment, it was so great because this is a guy. Obviously, some big creators or celebrities, some of them are like assholes in person. Some of them just aren't like who they live up to be on the camera. Chris is the guy who lives up who you think he is on camera. He's super charismatic, super genuine, amazing guy, down to earth. And so, he looked at me and said, "Congrats, man," and smiled. And I could see that it was so genuine. It was such an amazing interaction. And I was like, "We just recently broke 1,000 subscribers." He's like, "Congrats, man." He's like, that to like 10,000 is like the best. He's like, it goes downhill after that. Like, you're just sending emails all day and this and that. And we had a few laughs, and it was really cool. And so I'm not sure if we said anything else. Oh yeah, I said to him at the end, I was like, hopefully I'll have you on my show one day and we'll get to talk. And he was like, looking forward to it. So that was very cool. And then, we took pictures with him, my brother, my friend Jack, and I took pictures with Chris and James. And we had a few more small talk, and then we went our separate ways.